Welcome to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Para Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. It is the tipping podcast this week, proudly brought to you by Assure Strata Reports on Instagram. Give them a follow, and also buddy Oldman Masters Boxer, give him a follow on Facebook as well. They are the sponsors of the tipping competition, the Para Cave podcast tipping competition that is currently up and running. You can still join the tipping comp if you want to. Just let me know and I'll send you the links. We did have a couple of people join during the week. It is on ESPN Tips, so you can, if you are in other competitions in that, you can still join this one as well. Joining me once again is my co-host Ella. Ella, how are you going today?
Good.
That's good. How did you go last week in the tips? How many did you get?
4 out of 8.
4 out of 8, that's pretty good. 50%, not too bad. I got 5 out of 8, so not too much more than yourself. But we have a couple of top tippers last week. They got 6 right. They were Dennis Fairs and Bluffler. So they have shot up the leaderboard. Dennis is in 4th spot and Bluffler is in 6th spot. So leading the way still on 24 points is Jaden Zaid, closely followed by Flopstar 77 on 22 points and Pricey 08 on 21 points. Rounds out the top 3. So it's a close competition at the moment, so all tips are vital. So look, this is round 4 and it kicks off on Thursday night at Accor Stadium, the first home game for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And it is up against the Penrith Panthers, the premiers, the full-time premiers in a row. But they are without Nathan Cleary this week. Obviously, he is in that stand down for the concussion that he suffered against the Melbourne Storm I think it was about the 7th or 8th minute of that game last Thursday. Very unusual one, that one. It was with Jerome Hughes. So that happened last week, so he is doing the mandatory stand down. But also Campbell Graham for the South Sydney Rabbitohs is out as well with a leg injury. So that is very unfortunate for Campbell. As we know, he spent most of last year out in the injury list. So we wish him all the best in his recovery from his current injury, a leg injury. So the Rabbitohs and Panthers, so they're the two big outs for the Rabbitohs and Panthers, but a big in for the Rabbitohs is try-scoring record, or not record holder yet, but very close, Alex Johnston. He returns back into the Rabbitohs team, and I think he's only about 20-odd tries off Ken Irvine's record, so not going to say he's going to get it this year. You never know, though. He may, but he returns for the Rabbitohs. He certainly knows how to find the try line. And Michaeli Ravalawa as well. He is on the wing for the Rabbitohs as well. A one-season loan player from the Dragons. Jamie Humphries, again, is the halfback. So pretty standard side for them at the moment. For the Panthers, though, no Dylan Edwards again, no Nathan Cleary. Dane Laurie has taken the fullback spot there. Paul Alamotti goes to the wing. Tom Jenkins goes into the centre position, and Trent Talo has taken the halfback spot from Nathan Cleary, who's out. He actually was a bit of a star in their trial game early on in the season. I forget who the trial game was against. Someone will remind me, but I do remember it. It was at Cogra Oval one day, and absolute star he was that day. He was just happy playing trial games, and hopefully he said he wanted to crack first grade. So he's got that opportunity this weekend. Blaze Talangi stays on the interchange bench. Certainly came in handy last week. So, look, a few changes in that back line. It is not a back line that you would associate Penrith with, but the forward pack is still pretty much the same as what you would know it would be. Leota, Kenny, Smith, Sorensen, Martin, Yeo. So, look, this game is going to be a pretty close game, I think. I mean, these two sides, they previously met last year. The Panthers got the win 34 points to 12, and they actually smashed them by 30 points, 42 to 12 on a previous occasion. They played twice last season. The Rabbitohs had a loss against the Sharks last week, and the Storm defeated the Panthers last week in that grand final rematch. Look, I am going to tip the Penrith Panthers. You can never underestimate the Panthers, no matter how many players they have out, you just can never underestimate them. They have that next man up mentality. And look, they played really well against the Melbourne Storm last week. Only lost 30 points to 24, and that was without majority of the game without Nathan Cleary. The Rabbitohs, they will be hard to beat, their first home game, but I will tip the Panthers. The next game is Friday night, 6 p.m. It is the Roosters taking on the Titans at Allianz Stadium. 6 p.m. Connor Watson is out for the Roosters, and Keanu Kinney is out as well, suffering a neck injury. He will be missing from the Gold Coast Titans side. But for the Roosters, Lindsay Collins and Nat Butcher are set to return via the interchange bench. So that's some good news for the Sydney Roosters, who went down last week to the Warriors 14 points to 6. The Titans had a good win over the Knights up there on the Gold Coast, 26 points to 6. Their first win of the season after having the bye in round 1, then going down to the Bulldogs. Coming down to Sydney to play this game. Look, I wonder if there's going to be any animosity between David Fafita and the Roosters. Who knows? But we all know what happened in those contract discussions. But look, probably not, I don't think. But still no Cam Pereira on the wing for the Gold Coast. Tony Francis is one of those wingers, and Jojo Fafita is the other one. Look, this could actually be a pretty close game. We know that the Roosters have lost a lot of players this year. Don't want to harp on about that one too much, and they've also had their injury worries in the halves. But the Gold Coast as well, they can play a pretty exciting game of football. I think they are a better side up on the Gold Coast, but travelling wise, I'm not 100% sure if they are the best side. But this could go either way, to be honest. Last season, the Roosters got a big win, 48 points to 22, up there on the Gold Coast last year. I was actually at that game. Shout out to Tom from Retro Rugby League. I was up there with him as well. I think the night before Parramatta played Brisbane. Yeah, it would have been Brisbane. Or a couple of nights before, I think it might have been actually. Parramatta played Brisbane, but Roosters. I was at that game, and the Roosters really gave it to the Titans on that occasion. Two completely different sides this year, so I'm going to tip the Roosters in that one. Got another cracking game on Friday, 8 p.m. And, yep, you guessed it, the Broncos are playing on a Friday night at Suncorp Stadium. but they are the away team. This is the Battle of Brisbane. It is the Dolphins taking on the Brisbane Broncos, 8 p.m. up there at Suncorp Stadium. So, look, these games are creating a bit of a rivalry between each other. They've only played 4 times. The Broncos hold the advantage, 3 wins to 1. Last year, in the second time they played, the Dolphins got the win, 40 points to 6. We all know that the Broncos were struggling a little bit last year, but the Broncos in their first game, 28 points to 14 last year. They got the win there. The Dolphins, look, they are looking for their first win this season. I think this is a very crucial game for them. The more they lose games, the more they're going to fall out of touch with the top 8. For the Broncos, look, they got back on track with a win against another Queensland rival, the Cowboys, 26 points to 16. Pretty good performance there. But these games are really, really different. Big in for the Brisbane Broncos. Tony Staggs plays his first game of the season for the Broncos. So great to see Tony back. That is a huge in for them. Dean Mariner makes way for Tony. So, look, I think this is going to be a cracking game. Look, just on form, you'd probably have to go the Broncos to win this game. But as I said about last week's Parramatta Canterbury game, you don't know about the rivalry games. The Dolphins, they could just get the win, but I am going to tip the Broncos. I think it will be a close game. I think it'll be one of those 1-12 games. I think the Broncos might win by about 6 to 8 points in that one. So I'm going to go the Broncos in that one. Then the first game on Saturday sees the Dragons take on the Melbourne Storm at Strata Jubilee Stadium, which is Cogra, I guess, for the purists. Now, last season down in Melbourne, the Dragons got the win, 18 points to 16. It was probably their best win of the year, you could say. So that was down in Melbourne. They only played once last year. So look, it's a completely different Dragons side, as we know. They've got those new recruits for them, and look, a big in for them, you could say, is not even mid-season, but sort of quarter-season transfer. David Clemmer, former Tigers player, is on the interchange bench for them, so he is now playing for, I do believe, his 4th club, becoming a bit of a Aaron Woods sort of journeyman, I think. Started off at Canterbury, then went to Newcastle, Tigers, and now the Dragons, so his 4th club. A couple of big outs for the Melbourne Storm. Jerome Hughes has got a hand injury, so he will be missing. Expected to miss about 2 games, so he may be back in round 6. So, Nick Meaney as well, that's a big one for the Melbourne Storm. Scans have confirmed a facial fracture, so he'll be sidelined for 4 to 6 weeks. So that's their goal kicker out as well. And Big Nelson, he has failed a HIA following the game, so he is undergoing the NRL's concussion protocols. A few outs for the Melbourne Storm. Handy replacement for Nick Meaney. Grant Anderson comes into the side in that centre position. We've seen him play wing centre I guess Ryan Pappenhausen will take over the goal kicking duties. We've known him to be a bit of a goal kicker as well. Look, they've also got Cameron Munster as well, who has previously kicked goals. He's also previously muffed a couple as well. Ever reliant Tyron Richard, he goes into the halfback position. This guy can play pretty much any position in the back line. Can probably play a few in the forwards as well. And we have seen him play hooker before as well, and probably a bit of lock as well. But he goes into that halfback position with the out of Jerome Hughes. So, look, a little bit of a different looking Storm side. Their first test this season without some of their key players. The Dragons at Cogra. This could be an interesting one. Tyrell Sloan comes back into the side as well onto the wing. Moses Sully, Valentine Holmes on the wings. Lachlan Ilias, Kyle Flanagan in the halves. Look, I think the Melbourne Storm still will be too strong for the Dragons. Sorry, Flano, mate, if you're listening. Look, I think you're going to give it a good shake. You do know how to beat the Melbourne Storm, and probably a good opportunity with a couple of their key players out. But Cameron Munster's still there as well. Ryan Pappenhausen's still there. Harry Grant's still there. So, look, I'm going to tip the Melbourne Storm in that one. The next game, the middle game on Saturday, sees the Cowboys take on the Raiders up there in Townsville, the Queensland Country Bank Stadium, where the Cowboys are in 16th spot. They are still, unfortunately, winless. So they will be desperate for a win. The Raiders, they got smacked by the Manly Seagulls last week at Brookvale. So look, I think that's going to be they'll want to get back on track and get a win, because they started off the season really, really well. A few ins, a few outs as well for the Canberra Raiders. Just had a mind blank for a second there. Joseph Tarpany, the captain, he returns from suspension. Corey Horsburgh shifts to lock. Trey Mooney to the interchange bench. Morgan Smithies, the Englishman, he will miss the match due to concussion protocols. Todd Payton has stuck with the same 17 that played Brisbane. So, look, he is keeping the faith with those players, not making any changes, giving them a third chance, I guess you could say, to try and get a win and get their season started. Just like Parramatta, just like the Dolphins, they need to get this win to keep their season alive, because the more games you lose at the start of the season, the harder it is to gain them back. So, look, this one, this honestly could be a bit of a toss of the coin. Only because of the desperate stakes that is at hand, and the form of these two sides at the start of this season. Look, last year the Cowboys beat the Raiders twice, both down in Canberra and up in Queensland as well. So, look, I think this could be. It could go either one of two ways. It could be a massive points affair to one side, or it could be a low-scoring game. But look, I think I'm gonna go the Cowboys in this one. I think they can break their losing streak and get a win in that one. So I'm going to tip the Cowboys. Sharks and Bulldogs rounds out Super Saturday. It is played at Shark Park, 7:35 p.m. This should be probably, let's have a look. I think maybe the game of the round, potentially. You got Dolphins and Broncos, but that's always an intense battle. But this one here, the Sharks and the Bulldogs, this could be the game of the round. 6th versus 2nd. The Bulldogs, only team undefeated except for the Melbourne Storm, who had a bye. They find themselves in second spot on the ladder. The Sharks in sixth. They had a win against South Sydney last week at Shark Park. The Bulldogs beat my Parramatta Eels 16 points to 8 at Combank. Braden Hamlin-Ueli is out for the Sharks, so a bit of a loss for them, which is no good for them, obviously. Tom Hazelton has been named to make his return from a back injury, which is good. Braden has a knee cartilage injury, so not too good. Not too good for that one. But look, it just have to TBA for when he comes back. Toby Rudolph has been named on the extended bench. Sifa Talakai is a 50-50 chance of playing in this game. For the Bulldogs, look, they're the same side that took the field last week against the Eels, so no changes to their team. So pretty strong looking lineup there, as we know. No changes to them. And look, they are playing. They played some gritty football last week. I don't know whether Parramatta were better and the Bulldogs were worse than what they previously have been, but the first couple of games in the season, they beat the Dragons, they beat the Titans, put on a score against the Titans. The Sharks, they lost in Vegas, but then they won against the Cowboys up there, and they beat the Rabbitohs last week. Well, this is really going to be a good game of football. I think I'm only going to tip the Sharks just because they're at home. I'm going to tip the Sharks. Yeah, I'm going to tip the Sharks just because they're at home, and the Bulldogs will suffer their first loss of the season. Now that I've said that, the Bulldogs will probably win, knowing my tipping. But I think that only the Sharks, just because they're at home, they'll have that home ground advantage. Manly. Here we go again. It is Manly and Para. 3rd versus 17th. So, look, Parramatta on the bottom of the ladder. I'm not a happy camper at the moment, but look, I'm used to it being a Parramatta fan. So, look, for Manly, we'll start off with Manly. Taniela Paseka is eyeing round 25. He suffered a Achilles injury, a ruptured Achilles during the win against the Raiders. Now, look, I would have thought that would have been longer, to be honest, but he's eyeing that return in round 25. I'm sure the NRL physio will know more about that than I would. I'm sure he is all over that, so if you want to know more about that injury, check out NRL physio. For Parramatta, look, they've made a few changes to the team that has, I guess, I probably wouldn't have done, but hey, I'm not the coach of Parramatta Eels, Jason Riles is. Sean Russell has come back in, and Daniel Kerr has come back in with Jordan Sam Rani and Sam Tuivati making way. Look, Jordan has gotten permission from the NRL the last couple of weeks to play, as he's not in the top 30 squad. Dan Kerr he's been 18th man and on the extended bench for a few games now. He made 6 appearances for the Eels last year. Feel a bit sorry for Sam Tuivati making way. I thought there was big promise there for him. Congratulations to Joe Offahengawi. He makes his 200th NRL appearance, so a big milestone for there. Let's hope that the boys can turn it on for that, for Joe in his 200th game. That's a pretty fair effort to play 200 games. Manly, Nathan Brown goes onto the bench playing against one of his old clubs. And just Parramatta's luck, big Tommy Turbo is back. He missed the game against the Raiders, but he is back this week against Parramatta, and that'd be typical, wouldn't it? Because, just rest against Canberra and come back against Parramatta. But smart play there from the Sea Eagles. And Daly Cherry Evans, he lines up in the number 7 jersey. Obviously, the big news this week is that he will not be at Manly next year, despite them offering a 2-year contract. He will not be at Manly, so we'll just have to watch his space and see where he is going to be. Look, I think it was a lot better performance from Parramatta last week against the Bulldogs. There's still a few things to work out in terms of attack and defence, but I think it will be Manly who get the win. It pains me to say it, but I am going to tip Manly to win this game. Look, I've got a tipping competition to win too, to be honest, so it will not worry me one iota if I lose a point in a tipping competition and Parramatta end up winning the game. So good luck to the Eels. I really hope you can win this one. Another Sunday game for them, their 4th in a row, but I will tip Manly in this one. The last game of the round sees the West Tigers take on the New Zealand Warriors. Now, look, two sides that are going a lot better than what people probably thought at the start of the year. The Tigers are in 4th position and the Warriors in 7th. A big out for the Warriors. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is out for the Warriors, which is a big loss for them. A big loss for them, one of their most experienced players. So he's out with a hamstring injury. Rocco Berry comes into the centres for his first game of the season. So, look, big loss for the Warriors. Roger could be out for up to 8 weeks. Tiari Martin is the 18th man for the Tigers. Jarrell Skelton will play despite leaving the field with a hamstring injury. So not so many changes to the Tigers and only that one change to the Warriors. This one played at Campbelltown at 6:15 p.m, the last game of the round number 4. Look, both sides over the last couple of weeks have been playing some good footy. The Tigers had a good win against the Dolphins and Parramatta in the last 2 weeks, and the Warriors have had 2 wins in a row as well. Those 2 games, though, have been at home, so they beat the Roosters and the Sea Eagles. So this one, they are travelling away. They did play round 1 in Vegas against the Raiders. They went down there, so this is their second away game for the season. Now, look, we sort of do know that the Warriors are a different sort of performing team in an away. But look, I think the Tigers, they're gaining a lot of confidence at the moment, the way that they're playing, the leadership that Jerome Luai is showing there. They've got a pretty good spine. Jareen Buller, Lachlan Galvin, Jerome Luai, Api Coruscant, who pretty much won the game for the Tigers last week. He set up a try for Alex Seyfarth and also scored one himself from dummy half. So, look, a very experienced player, Api is looking maybe to get that Origin number 9 spot. And look, at the moment, the way that the Tigers are going, the way that the Cowboys are going, you'd probably have to give it to Api in game number 1. Terrell May as well could be a bolter for New South Wales if he keeps up his great form. He is going gangbusters. That will be a big clash between himself and James Fisher-Harris, the captain of the Warriors as well. So that'll be a big clash there. One to watch, that is for sure. So look, I am going to tip the Tigers in this one. I just think they can get the win. As I said, they've got confidence. They're playing some great footy. It is at Campbelltown, one of their home grounds. So I'm going to tip the Tigers in that one. And the Newcastle Knights have got the bye this weekend after they went down to the Gold Coast Titans. So a hard week of training for them. Newcastle have the bye. So just recapping my tips, I am going to go the Panthers, Roosters, Broncos, Storm, Cowboys, Sharks, Sea Eagles and Tigers. Now, my little co-host Ella had to step out. Now, I think I remember her tips. So, I think she went Panthers. She may have went the upset Titans in the Roosters-Titans game. I think she might have went the Dolphins too, I think. I'm not 100% sure. I think she went the Storm. Look, anyway, I'm not going to predict her tips. You will see her tips on the Instagram page on Thursday. So, I definitely know that she would have tipped the Sea Eagles over Parramatta anyway as well. But you will see her tips on the Instagram page. She just had to duck out, so apologies for that one. She'll be back next week joining me for the tipping podcast, proudly brought to you by Assure Strata Reports and also Buddy Oldman Masters Boxer. So follow Assure Strata Reports on Instagram and Buddy Oldman Masters Boxer on Facebook as well. Proud sponsors also of the Paracave podcast tipping competition. Got through it. Okay, there we go. That is the tipping podcast for round 4. Look, follow my tips if you dare. Most people probably aren't. That's why they're probably beating me in the tipping competition. But, you know, enjoy your rugby league over the weekend. Some cracking games to watch. I'll be trying to watch all 8 games as I try and do all the time. And I will join you again soon this week for some more content. And next week for the tipping podcast. The Paracave podcast by the fan for the fans. Go Para!
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.